Wow. It's crazy to think that I finally been caught. What does that mean? Well, let me tell you the story. It was all the way back in 2007. I was hiding away in a chamber of things, and it was like a chamber of chambers of chambers, way deep down in the dark mental spaces of my mind. I hadn't yet been born, as I would be born 3 years later. So, where was I? I was in a state known as prelude to sleep paralysis. I was basically asleep, but I was not yet born. But I wasn't dead either. But I wasn't sleeping, yet I was sleeping, because this is my mental consciousness, waiting to be placed inside of somebody's body. So, for the record, I was at least alive. I was conscious, just didn't have a placement in anybody, but I wasn't dead. And in these consciousnesses, there was one person. This one conscious went by the name of Home Perfect for Entertaining. But we don't have to say the home part because I like the latter. Perfect for entertaining was the conscious that wanted people to see exactly what he can do and how good he can do it. And perfect for entertaining was a rather good conscious. He wasn't like he wasn't thirsty for being famous or anything. He just wanted people to know that there were things that he could do that everyone else can do, but he does it in a unique way. And so Perfect for Entertaining was one of the lesser known consciouses in the conscious realm, but the people that did know him did appreciate him. Perfect for Entertaining was somewhat of a spider. It made beautiful webs just as everybody else could, but the webs that it made stood out while also blending in. And that is why Perfect for Entertaining. Yeah, you get the gist. So in 2007, Perfect for Entertaining was called, along with the rest of the consciouses in the conscious realm. He was placed inside of somebody's dream. This somebody, had they a name, would not have a name because they're supposed to remain anonymous forever. So in their anonymity, they had a dream, and Perfect for Entertaining was in there. And this spark led Perfect for Entertaining to give that person a vision, and that vision was to create as much as you can. And so they did. However, in 2007, there was an explosion that happened, and it was really, really sad. This explosion that happened caused a shift in time, which did something. I think this was around the time Pluto lost its status as being a planet. Or was that 2005? It was somewhere around then. But Pluto was demoted from a planet to a dwarf planet, and this caused Pluto to send a rock from space all the way to that person's house, and it crashed right into their house, killing them. How unfortunate. Perfect for Entertaining's vessel, or host, was not able to perceive, no, was not able to execute the idea that Perfect for Entertaining had given them. So sad. So Perfect for Entertaining had to find a new vessel, and so they did, in another dream. That person got the message, but as they went to create, unfortunately, they had an uh, asphyxiation. That's the word I'm looking for. Asphyxiation is when somebody suddenly stops breathing, just like in choking. So they had an asphyxiation reaction, and unfortunately, they died too. So Perfect for Entertaining was deemed at least bad luck of some sort, which is why they weren't given to anybody else. How sad. It wasn't up until 2012 when Perfect for Entertaining would be used again. They were placed inside somebody else's dream. But that other person's dream already had a vessel, some kind of vessel that made them also kind of evil. So this combined evil vessel with the perfect for entertaining vessel caused something really, really bad. And in 2012, that person made something. It was a television show, and this television show had absolutely no punchline. It wasn't meant to be funny. It wasn't meant to be relatable. It was just strictly dark. Some kind of dark and evil presence was laid all around this television show, and it was so horrible that it was eventually taken off the air. But it was archived for further notices, and there was a lot of tapes of it still residing around there online. And so what happened? What happened to those tapes? Well, they still exist. I'm just not telling you where you can find them. And so the creator of the television show was very upset. They censored his work, and not only that, they took it down. So did his work really exist after all? Well, no, which is why he went on to make yet another television show, and it was just as dark as the previous ones. However, this one was worse. Well, the case for this one is worse because he was broadcasted to a television show that only airs in the afternoon, and a lot of children are up in the afternoon. Why? Because that's when it's time to be awake. As surprising as this sounds, I have to realize that not everybody is nocturnal like me. The afternoon is the best time to do things because that's when it's bright outside and you're aware of what you're doing. At nighttime, you can't go anywhere because you have the risk of getting attacked. So, a lot of people saw that really dark television show. It wasn't even dark with a meaning, it was just straight up dark, and that was really bad. And so they took down his television show, and a lot of people sued him. How unfortunate. He was really angry about the lawsuits, and so he had to defend himself and himself only, but it didn't work. And he eventually got arrested. But he escaped his prison cell because somebody sent him a cake. Inside that cake was a nail file, and he used that nail file to his advantage to escape. Did he eat the rest of the cake? Of course not. That cake was laid with cyanide. So, after escaping, he made it to a laboratory and he made a new experiment, a brand new friend, and he named this friend Sparkle Blessings. Sparkle Blessings was his friend, and they two ran around and they hunted down everybody who let him broadcast the television show and who also sued him. He killed all of them one by one. They didn't catch him because Sparkle Blessings made sure to get rid of every trace of him that existed. Did it work? It did work for a short while. This went on from 2012 to 2015, and then in 2015 he was finally caught. So, what happened? He unfortunately, well, maybe not unfortunately, this guy's really evil, broadcasting Snuff Films to the world and then getting mad when it gets taken down. Reminder, a lot of kids saw what he was putting on TV, and what he was putting on TV is beyond your human comprehension. Notice it wasn't even dark with a meaning, it was literally just disgusting. So he killed himself. And what happened? As a ghost, he met Ted Bundy, and he and Ted Bundy did something really otherworldly, thus merging them into one person. And they took the body of Sparkle Blessings, however, still had the consciousness, and then perfect for entertaining was locked away in this dark and evil body. Remember, perfect for entertaining was not once dead, but it also wasn't alive. So it's conscious and knows exactly what's going on. It was supposed to be perfect for entertaining, not perfect for this, but alas, it is too late. Ted Bundy, Sparkle Blessings TV host, guy went on and they killed more and more people. And they knew that it was him this time because Sparkle Blessings would eventually die out later and later. Remember, Sparkle Blessings is a genetics lab experiment. Made of what? Made of four solutions: cyanide, styrofoam, sodium chloride, and pepper spray. And paprika. Well, that would be five, wouldn't it? Yeah, but five isn't as cool as a number as four. I'm joking, it's way better. I personally like the number five, but that's not what we're talking about. So the psychopath ran around trying to warn people. Well, not really warning, he was kind of just snitching on himself. Hey, that psychopath that's killing people because that television show that was taken down like 3 years ago, he's still there. And then later he would kill everybody who told them that. Because remember, he has to remain anonymous too. So a search was going on for the guy. They put a bounty on his head, but nobody was willing to at least go ahead and kill the guy. Why? Because nobody wants to deal or fight that. They stand no chance. He's literally some kind of robot that's mixed with one of the most notorious serial killers of the 70s ever, and also some psychopathic TV host. Why would anybody want to go for that, no matter the bounty? So, the state and eventually the country would have to put a bounty on him so great that made at least people willing to catch him. Nobody did, so they just went on a search. And then later, he was at a mall. Nobody knew it was him because he changes his identity multiple times. Nobody even knows his name. He doesn't even have a name. I don't know his name. So, as he's like hiding and stuff, or not even hiding, he's just blending in at the mall. He spontaneously kills everyone. He had no reason to do that. Nobody at the mall had, well, not that he knows of, but nobody at the mall wanted his television show taken down. So why would he do that? Nobody knows why. But alas, they found out that it was him as he was the only survivor, and they chased him down. Now, Ted Bundy Sparkle Blessings robot guy that has four people inside of his brain, he had no way to escape. He was officially surrounded because everybody knew that it was him who blew up the mall, as he was the only one who survived. That's not pure luck, by the way. I'm pretty sure if there's a notorious serial killer going around who's been killing people for 3 or 4 years, and then they blow up a mall, and suspiciously, they're the only person still alive in the debris, I'm fairly certain people are going to assume that that person is the one who perpetrated it. So slowly but surely, that robot ran away. Unfortunately, using a Bluetooth speaker, the state was able to connect to Ted Bundy's Sparkle Blessings robot because the guy had put a Bluetooth function and connected it to him. They were able to hear what was going on inside the brain and their plans. Ted Bundy robot was going to go to the White House and blow it up. Oh my goodness, what? He, however, did not get to do that because he was stopped before he could. However, Ted Bundy Robot killed himself once again. Reminder that Ted Bundy Robot has the ability of possession, and then he possessed the president. He has the ability to possess people, and he possessed the president. He's quite overpowered, you might say. That's not fair. He could just constantly kill himself and then possess people like nothing happened. Why, that is true. So the president is now brainwashed by Ted Bundy Sparkle Blessings, and he called for a civil war where he brainwashed a bunch of people and made them massacre everybody else in the Midwest and all the other states that didn't agree with what he was doing. That was until Perfect for Entertaining was able to at least get some kind of courage to do something. I don't know, maybe make themselves go insane. And that's exactly what Perfect for Entertaining did. Made himself go insane. And this caused a haywire malfunction inside of the mind of Sparkle Blessings Ted Bundy, and that made him throw up. Off topic, but did you know Ted Bundy was a necrophiliac? It's like a really interesting fact. So, because of this, that guy threw up, lost his mind, went haywire, balls off the wall, and bashed his head into a mirror. And then he fell out of the White House, crash landed. And then his body split into all four hosts Sparkle Blessings, Ted Bundy, who's now been recovered because it's split in half. Perfect for Entertaining, who now has a body. Ever since 2007, that guy hasn't had a body. I mean, that wouldn't make any sense because I don't really care. And then the television guy who made the TV show and started all of this. So, Perfect for Entertaining then went to Pluto, possessed Pluto itself, which is weird. Pluto doesn't have a mind, so how is that possible? I don't know. Look, I'm being really honest. I'm just ranting outside of my head. And I really love the idea of things just not making any sense and where shit just happens. Because regardless of if it makes sense or not, if it's something, it's something. If it's something glowing, it's glowing. And so, perfect for entertaining, sent a rock to Pluto and it crashed directly in the White House, thus causing a chain reaction and blowing everybody in Washington, D.C. up. And the CIA had no idea who did it because perfect for entertaining does not have a body. Remember, perfect for entertaining is literally a conscious or an idea. All the way back from 2010 in the mental states, stages, mental area place. And also, not to mention the spider. So, in the end, Washington, D.C. was blown up to bits, and this was the most notorious terrorist crime ever in the United States of America, or the United States of wherever this really is. I never stated it was America up until now. Just because Washington, D.C. is there in the Midwest, that doesn't necessarily mean it's America. The mall wasn't even American either, it's literally just called the mall. And so, that's the end of the story. Or is it really? Because remember, Ted Bundy can still come back as a ghost no matter what. We've never really addressed how he can do that. Why can he do that? But Ted Bundy has multiple lives, unlike the television guy and Sparkle Blessings, because Sparkle Blessings was a genetics lab experiment. So Ted Bundy is still alive somehow, some way. And how? Why is it still going? Hey, end. I think Ted Bundy possessed a voice message. It won't end. Stop.